Welcome everyone to Advanced Personal Management, Advanced Position Management. This is an informational webinar on APM Squared. Today we're going to be talking about this program, and let's get disclaimers out of the way first and let you know that the presentation is given for educational purposes only. We're not broker-dealers or financial advisors. We're not making any specific trade recommendations. Also, please be aware that your risk in trading options is substantial, and make sure you are aware of all your risks prior to placing any trades. Also note that if there are any demonstrations, there will be hypothetical computer simulated results, and they are believed to be as accurately represented as possible, but keep in mind that live results can vary for a significant number of reasons. The biggest thing I'm asked about APM Squared is what the heck is it? Because it's kind of a funny name, right? What it stands for is Advanced Personal Management and Advanced Position Management, and the position management is more geared towards the M3, the bearish butterfly, the rock, in the M21. The program is a live recording of a 2-day psychology and advanced income trading seminar that we held here in New Hampshire. APM, like I said, has two meanings. The first being advanced personal management, which would include topics such as how to get yourself to do what you need to do in order to become successful, the difference between appropriate fear and inappropriate fear, how to train yourself to stop fear immediately, as well as many other performance-related topics. Now, in case you're wondering, this is not the frou-frou garbage that you get from so-called trading psychology books and presentations about controlling your emotions. This is about understanding how you work, understanding how you think, and understanding what drives your actions, and then utilizing the information to take command of your actions and produce the results you want. Advanced personal management also means creating success loops. You see, most traders get into trading with good intentions, and whether they start off doing well or they start off doing poorly, they'll often drop into what we call failure loops, where they think what they're doing is going to make things better, when in reality what they're doing is they're following a very predictable path that is going to continually erode away at their confidence to the point where they either get extremely sporadic with their trading, or in other words, they desperately jump from one thing to the next, or even worse, they try and get more and more conservative or protective with trading, going for more frequent but smaller and smaller wins without realizing the damage that this is actually doing, and leading them down a path that's known as the spiral of doom. So what we do instead with advanced personal management is we show you a process that all top performing professionals use in any field to get the largest, fastest, and most consistent improvements in their performance. And then we apply that strategy to trading, and thereby creating a success loop of continual improvement. The other aspect of APM Squared is advanced position management. A lot of people think of this as advanced M3, advanced bearish butterfly, advanced rock, or M21. And it's focused on trades and advanced option trading mechanics, as well as trade plans, risk control, exit entry and adjustment criteria, and so on. So you'll see multiple M3, rock, and bearish butterfly variations, as well as some things you've never seen before in the program as far as trading mechanics. There is really a wealth of information in there. Now, a little bit about myself. I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but before I started trading, and even before I started locking your success, I had several companies that I started from scratch. I built them up. I later sold them. Now, one of these companies was a BMW service shop. It's a company I started on a shoestring. We didn't have any money when we started. I worked my butt off. I built it into a successful business. However, for those of you who know me, you'll probably realize that I get really excited and I get really motivated when I'm challenged and when things are growing. But as soon as the business or whatever I'm doing tends to stabilize and it starts making good money and the growth starts to settle down, and you're left with the mundane and repetitive tasks required to run a mature business, I tend to get bored, and I start to lose interest. Now, to a lot of people, they might think, well, I love a mature business that's making really good money, and I can certainly appreciate that point of view, but to me, it's not about the money. It's about the challenge and the anticipation of the unknown and the things that come from starting something new and consistently being challenged. That's what really keeps me going as a person. It keeps me motivated. So, I'm running this business. It's doing fine financially. It's pretty much, leveled out. past the challenging growth stage, and I'm getting a little bored. So, I decided that, for that and some other reasons, I decided, I think I'm just going to sell this great business. But at the same time, I'm concerned about my customers. I've always been very concerned about customers. They're extremely important to me. People have been important to me. So I wanted to be really careful who I sold it to. Well, it turns out I had a friend that is a really great guy. He's competent with fixing cars. He's wanted to go out on his own. He didn't know how to really do that, or wasn't ready for all the stuff associated with a startup. So we ended up putting a deal together, and I showed him exactly what to do, and that was that. So I take the proceeds from the sale and I go out and I buy a home inspection franchise. This was a big step for me. I didn't know anything about home inspections, and I happened to be the first franchisee here in New Hampshire, so I didn't really have any support from anybody, other than the head of the franchise that was out in Canada. But I ended up building up the territory from scratch. I did my thing. I gained a great reputation. I had a booming home inspection business, which was great. But eventually the challenge passed as well, and I ended up getting a little bit bored. So one day I'm doing a home inspection for this nuclear engineer, and he says, wow, you've got a really great business here, and I'm getting sick of this nuclear engineering thing, and having to go in on their schedule, and I want a little bit of freedom. I'm really looking to start my own business. He said, but I don't know how to do it from scratch. Would you consider selling me your business? Now at this point, I hadn't really thought about selling, but said, well, if I'm going to sell it, I need to get the right price, of course. I need to be able to go off and do something else and support myself. I certainly wasn't rich at that point. But my bigger concern was that my customers got taken care of properly, because they were very important to me. So we talked for a while, and it seemed like we had a really, he was a really nice guy. He was caring. He was smart. In fact, he was brilliant. He was a nuclear engineer, right? So I'm thinking, well, he's going to do a great job for the customers. We put a deal together. I traded him how to run the business and do the work, and that was that. Now, you might ask, well, why am I telling you this? Well, I tell you this because both of these well-established, positive cash flow businesses with solid customer bases and owners who were very confident when it comes to the technical skills of their business, both of these businesses within 5 years had failed. Why? Well, as it turns out, it was the investigation into this very question that led me to distinctions that opened up a whole new world of possibilities for me, and it changed my life forever. And I'd like to share some of those distinctions with you today. So starting with why they may have failed. From a casual point of view, or from an outsider looking in, it might appear that these owners didn't know what they were doing. But I knew that wasn't the case here. Remember, I wanted to make sure my customers were taken care of. It was my highest priority. So I made sure that they were capable. I made sure that they were trained. Were they lazy? Absolutely not. I know that these people, I kept in contact with them. I know they personally worked those businesses 60 to 70 hours a week, right up till the end. And on top of that, these guys were smart, but they failed anyway. Again, why? Here's the answer. The problem was they simply couldn't get themselves to do the things they needed to do. They had proven systems in place. They had the knowledge, but they were afraid to use that knowledge. They were afraid to follow the systems. Yes, they followed the systems at first when things were new. But at some point, they thought, hey, why improve and train myself when things are going well? Why advertise if we're backed up with work for at least 3 weeks, right? They broke away from the system because things were going great. But what they didn't realize is that they were simply at the top of a cycle. All businesses, including trading businesses, run through both good and bad cycles. And if you don't do the right things in the up cycles, it makes the down cycles that much worse, as was the case here. They thought that things were going wonderful. And on the surface, they were going wonderful, right? They were getting great results. They had made a lot of money until one day they realized, hey, we have no work today. Interesting. Now, things did cycle up for them. In other words, work started coming back in, and then it cycled back down. But the busy times started to become less busy. The slow times became, a little more often. And as a result, things for them started to become a little bit less certain. So they broke further from the system and they dropped prices, right? They decided to accept less, which only temporarily brings in more business, but that permanently drops margin. A cycle creating even less certainty. Now, for me, this wouldn't have been a problem. Remember, I started the business with no customers. I started the business with virtually no money. And in the case of the home inspection business, I didn't even have technical skills. Yet I created methods and brought in customers and therefore the money to expand and sustain the business. I knew how the systems worked. I knew why the systems worked, and therefore I knew how and when to adjust those systems if needed. They, on the other hand, they came in with a customer base. They should have had plenty of money in reserves, assuming they budgeted properly, because they were busy for an extended period of time after they bought the business, plenty to build up reserves. But what they didn't have was adequate confidence in their systems, and they didn't have adequate confidence in themselves. And as a result, instead of realizing they needed to follow the system, they started to question the system. They didn't even realize they broke from the system, actually. They asked questions to themselves like, what if something changed? What if things are different now? What if this no longer works? And they started focusing on all the things that might go wrong while ignoring all the things that might go right. When business was good, they didn't see the point in advertising. This eventually led to a lull in business. When business was slow, instead of advertising and doing promotions to bring in business, they were afraid and they chose to pull back to save money, which resulted in a loss of opportunity and a further loss of business, as well as a further loss of confidence. And because their confidence was so low, they started jumping at so-called quick money opportunities, like accepting less by cutting profits through lowering prices. They bought courses on how to run their business better, instead of doing the things that were already proven to work. Why would anyone take a proven system and throw it aside to try things they hardly know anything about, especially when they're having problems? Well, this behavior eventually eroded away their customer base and at their profits until eventually it put them out of business. And as I thought about this, I realized that this failure was not a knowledge problem. It was not a technical skills problem. They knew everything they needed to know. And it certainly wasn't a laziness problem. They worked day and night. It was not a system problem either. We had great systems in place. I knew the systems work. In fact, I considered taking the businesses back because I was 100% confident that I could easily have them profitable in a very short period of time, probably within a month. But truth be told, I was focused on bigger and better things at the time. The reason these businesses failed was clearly psychological, and this got me wondering, if both of these businesses failed for the same reason, how many other businesses fail from issues that are primarily related to psychology? And as it turns out, it's a very, very high percentage. And this is a fact that fascinated me to the point where I dove into researching the topic of success. And that launched my journey into the study of success itself. In fact, this was when Lock In Your Success was born, right? Lock In Your Success was born as a success coaching company, life coaching company, and that's what we started out as. Now, one of the things about success that I wanted to know at the time was, can we put a number on how important psychology is versus skills when it comes to being successful in any field? Because I started the home inspection business. When I did that, I did it with virtually no home inspection skills. And I surpassed the other home inspection companies in my area within 6 months. Even though they were better established, they had more resources, and they had more connections than I did. Well, I did months of research on the topic across many different fields, and it turns out that most experts agree that while it's clear you have to have certain mechanics to be successful, and we can't discount the mechanics, you have to have mechanics. You have to know how to do it, right, or learn how to do it. But even though that's the case, it's equally clear that success in virtually anything in any field is approximately 80% mental and only 20% mechanics. And when I finally internalized this and applied the correct psychology to my life and to my trading, the results were They were astonishing. You know, APM squared is about breaking through your limitations, both on a personal psychological level and on a trading mechanics level. On the psychology side, we call it advanced personal management. In the program, we discuss the 3 biggest factors that determine your success. Because regardless of what you're doing, in order to be successful, 3 things have to happen. You've got to do something, and you got to keep doing it. You can't completely switch and run to something else and completely switch to something else. You have to have some commitment to it. If you quit, you fail. So you need the ability to stay in the game, to keep trading, to keep doing, or whatever it is you're doing. You have to notice the results you're getting, and you also have to know how to properly interpret those results. We have to notice changes in the environment that might affect our results as well. We call this type of a thing sensory acuity. Seeing what's going on around you, noticing what's happening. And then finally, you've got to exercise what we call behavioral flexibility to adapt to those changes. If you keep going and you pay attention and you make changes a little bit at a time, right? Not huge changes, a little bit at a time, you will succeed no matter what you're doing. You have no choice. That is the magic formula for success in anything. Now, we teach those, and we also teach the reasons why you behave the way you do. Very often we consciously know we should do something, yet we find ourselves doing something else. Why? Well, it has to do with the way you communicate with your unconscious mind. And some people call that subconscious, right? You see, the most powerful part of your mind, the part of your mind that drives your behaviors, is doing millions of things at the same time. And the vast majority of those things are hidden from you. You being the part of your mind that is listening to me right now and making judgments about what I'm saying. You are the least informed and the last to know anything about what's going on in or around your body. In fact, by the time you are aware of anything, your unconscious has already taken in, processed, and decided what to do with information. And the only thing you can do about it at that point is to notice what's going on and stop it or redirect the action that is already underway. So the reason you behave differently than you might like is because you want one thing, while your unconscious mind obviously has a different agenda. Fortunately, it doesn't have to be that way. We can teach you how to communicate and train the most powerful part of your mind, the unconscious mind, so that you can be on the same page. You can work together and naturally take the actions, effortlessly take the actions that you need to draw you towards your desired outcomes. We teach you about emotions and how to properly interpret what the emotions are telling you. Realize that emotions are there for a reason. Many times we don't understand the emotions. We don't fully understand them. And as a result, we try to push them down. We try to push them away. But in reality, the emotions are trying to tell us something. And if we push them down or we try to control them, they will get continually more and more intense. However, if we listen to what they're telling us and we take the appropriate actions, the emotion goes away. So being able to interpret these emotions is critical, especially when we're dealing with stress and fear, for example. Once we understand what stress and fear are telling us, these emotions are quite simple to deal with. Other things that we talk about is learned emotions, right? Did you know that you learned your emotions? A lot of people don't do that. They think they just happen, but the reality is you've learned the emotions. You've been trained to feel the way you do, either by yourself or through society. You've attached a meaning or an expectation to a stimulus, and as a result, whenever that stimulus occurs, your unconscious automatically produces an emotion as if it was true. For example, if you're driving along in your car and everything seems fine, and all of a sudden you notice flashing lights behind you, what happens? Well, if you're like most people, you'd probably slouch down a bit and you get this not so good feeling in your stomach as you start running these scenarios in your head, about, whether or not you're going to get a ticket and what that means to your insurance going up and all this other stuff, right? You'd probably be a little stressed. Are you stressed because of the flashing lights? Or is it the meaning you've attached to the flashing lights? You know, what if we pretend we've never had an experience with flashing lights before? And you heard lots and lots of stories about these people who drive up behind you when you're driving your car and with flashing lights, and they pull you over. And then they come out and they give you $1 million. $1 million for nothing. Would you feel differently about flashing lights? Would that produce a different emotion? My point is that the lights don't create the emotion. It's the meaning you've previously associated with those lights in your unconscious mind that causes the trigger of the lights to create the emotion that seems to automatically appear. And it's likely the emotion appeared before you were even consciously aware of those lights. Again, your unconscious sees the lights. It processes the information. It produces a meaning in an emotion, and then you finally notice the lights. Now, the great part about this process is that once you understand it and you bring it into your conscious awareness, it opens up the possibility of changing the meaning of those lights, and therefore changing your automatic reaction or the emotion associated with this or any given stimulus. Now, as far as emotions go, there are also two kinds, right? There are appropriate emotions, and then there are useful emotions. For example, I might get angry with myself because I clearly mismanaged a trade. And that anger may be appropriate. I don't know, depends on what I did, right? But what I need to ask myself is anger the best way to get the end result that I want? Because my guess is that this has happened before. You reacted the same way, and it clearly hasn't worked. Because here we are again, right? So you need to ask yourself, what emotion is most useful for getting me to the results I want? And then program that in so that you have a more useful emotion attached to that stimulus so that when it happens next time, you do something different next time. In other words, something happens, a stimulus, the other part of your brain applies a predetermined meaning so that stimulus to that stimulus and creates an emotion beneath the threshold of your awareness. So it seems the emotion came out of nowhere, just like breathing, right? If I focus on it, I can stop my breathing. But all I need to do is shift my attention and stop focusing on it. And what do you know? I'm breathing again. Huh, I didn't even have to do anything. An emotion can feel the same way. It can feel like it can come up and you didn't even have to do anything. But with emotions, it's very different. Emotions are pre-learned responses. And since they were learned, they can certainly be unlearned and then changed. And we show you how to do that in the program. You know, other topics in advanced personal management include creating the appropriate amount of confidence. You'll never be a great trader without confidence. However, blind confidence is dangerous. So determining the right amount of confidence for your skill level and what you actually know is critical. It's in the program. We talk about using stress and fear to your advantage. You know, most people, you know, they do all they can to avoid stress and they do all they can to avoid being afraid. However, fear and stress are very powerful and very useful emotions when they're focused in the right direction. And you can utilize them to propel yourself towards your goals. Another cool thing we can do with advanced personal management is we can show you how to take the energy of fear, right? Because for a lot of us, if we have intense fear, we have intense amount of energy. We can take the energy of fear and we can transform it into excitement and confidence pretty much on demand. And that's pretty useful for most occasions. We also get really deep into backtesting. I think we've all spent months backtesting a strategy, convincing ourselves that it's the best thing ever, only to live it and live trade it and have a completely different experience. The excuses we come up with for this different experience, you know, are almost amusing sometimes if it weren't for the fact we lost a bunch of money. But those excuses are very rarely accurate. We talk about how we delete, distort, and generalize information and how that affects learning. We take you through the circle of self-deception and the 3 primary reasons for not performing, or you may not be performing, as well as your own or somebody else's backtesting. We talk about how to tell if you'll actually be able to trade a strategy. You know, it's one thing to trade a strategy in Backtester when you can click forward and back and you can go through 2 months in 2 minutes and, you know, there's really no money on the line. But it's something completely different to sit there in a position for a week or 2 weeks at maximum delta, listening to the news, worrying about a market gap, you know, while you're drawn down towards your maximum loss. You know, or even if you're sitting on a substantial gain, you know, I mean, some people, you know, they get attached to those gains and they get panicked about losing the gains. But, you know, if you're wondering, you know, you're sitting there, you're wondering what's going on for days on end. Are you going to hold that position? Are you going to break plan? Realize that even very small shifts in your entry, exit, or adjustment strategies can produce drastically different results from the base system. And the vast majority of traders make these shifts when they're live trading. In other words, they don't trade the way they backtested, and naturally they're going to get different results. But then they go back and they blame it on the system or on execution or on something else that has nothing to do with the difference. They've essentially blamed it on the wrong thing. And then they make a logical decision based off the wrong information to do something different, and they wonder why they don't get anywhere in their trading career. It's a very interesting dynamic that we do run across with traders a lot. So that's generally what we cover in advanced personal management. And then we come over to advanced position management. You know, the M3 strategy has always been, it continues to be, a learning strategy. It's purposely inefficient and more complex than it needs to be in order to realize the type of returns that it gets. And yet at the same time, it's also the best strategy an intermediate level income trader could possibly trade if their goal was to get a better understanding of income trading principles. In other words, I could get the same results more simply than trading the classic M3 strategy. But if I wanted to advance to the next level, the M3 really is 1,000 times better than just about anything else out there. Now with APM squared, a lot of people consider this as advanced M3. We go through advanced M3 concept. It's like an M3 on steroids. We discuss the principles and the theories behind the M3. We look at the alternative in the advanced adjustment strategies. You'll find that many of the broken wing butterfly strategies and techniques that you see today in some of these other trades are a direct result of the APM squared program. We look at multiple and more efficient versions of the M3. I think there's at least 4, maybe 5 of the M3. We look at versions where we can double the trade size with the same planned capital to increase returns. We teach you how to understand the various rule sets and the trades and how they'll react based on the types of positions they are, not on the specific position they are. Okay? This allows us to know how any given trade will react without knowing the specific rule set, rather than wondering and having to test and go through the agonizing steps to tell whether a trade will do well or when it's going to do well and when it's going to do poorly. We talk about how to properly read your T+0 line and to better understand what your position's real risk is. We show you how to improve your trade entries and exits for better results. We talk about how to tell when you've left concept when using APM. When you're doing advanced position management, you get into these positions that are very complex sometimes. And sometimes it's hard to tell if you've changed concept from the general M3 concept or not. And we talk about how to do that. We go beyond butterfly call and broken wing butterfly structures. We do small position management and incremental adjustments. So if you're trading small, this is a very good program for that as well. But we also talk about why everyone should practice them. So one of the interesting things about trading small is it's much more difficult to get your incremental adjustments. In other words, if I have one butterfly on, if I do one vertical, it's a lot bigger move than doing one vertical on a 10-lot M3, for example. So that presents challenges. It's more difficult. And what you can do is you can purposely trade small even though you don't have to. and force the same type of incremental adjustability, then you can take those learnings and you can bring it back to your large positions. It makes you a much more better, much more proficient trader, and it allows us to also have options when we adjust. If we're having trouble filling a butterfly, or we're having trouble doing one type of order versus another for whatever reason, or if we get into a position where we have a blowout scenario in the market, it gives you a lot more options in your trading. It talks about maintaining the safest possible position while adjusting. It's one thing to go into BackTrader and put on a butterfly with a call all in one shot. It's something, or to roll butterflies back, or any type of adjustment like that. It's one thing to do that in BackTrader when you can do everything at the same time. It's a lot different when you have to do it one move at a time, and the market's moving around and the prices are moving around. When one thing fills and something else doesn't, there's just a lot of stuff that goes on, and we talk about how to maintain the safest possible position while adjusting. Also, we start talking a little bit about subjectivity and how to alter your adjustment strategy based on your market opinion. We talk about understanding and adjusting very complex options positions. Another thing that's really cool is talking about how wing width and the spread between your short strikes affects your implied volatility risk and how the trade's going to react, and changing the trade plan because of those to compensate for those parameters. So in other words, we might be doing a bearish butterfly, for example. And if the bearish butterfly, it sometimes kicks in over $50,000. When you get those tough months, you're 3/3 scaled in and prices tend to be high. You can get to $60, $70, sometimes $80,000 in that position. If it starts out with a $50,000 planned capital position, we can easily cut that margin down by rolling in the outer wings, or the outer long strikes on both sides, right? We can easily cut that down, but when you do that, there's a consequence to that, and it creates a flatter gamma, and that's going to create different adjustment points. That means your reduced capital position is going to be reacting differently than your full capital position. You're going to be making different adjustments, and it's not the same trade anymore. So we talk about how do we do that? How do we deal with that? How do we compensate with that? Sometimes it involves changing the actual adjustment parameters of the trade. Sometimes it involves having a reference position. All those things are discussed in the program. We look at exit criteria. You need more. A lot of the programs, mine included, they have exit criteria, profit target, and maximum loss, and there's really not much else in there. The reality is when you're, again, M3 is a learning trade. Everything we do is to help you learn it to be a better trader. So one thing you really should do is have multiple exit criteria. We talk about them here. We have trade plans that have, I don't know, probably 5 to 10 exit criteria at least, or reasons to exit it. And then when you develop your own exit criteria, you come in and you can backtest that. We talk about profit targets and what they really mean. If you have a trade with a 5% profit target, or say a 10% profit target, or whatever, it doesn't mean the trade wins 10% every time it wins. And it doesn't mean it makes 10% every month. All it is a reference point. We look at it as, this is what the trade is capable of doing if things go extremely well, is generally how I look at it. And a lot of times, they don't go that well. And, you're looking at something smaller. So again, this can be addressed in reasons to exit. What's a reason to exit under my profit target? And you can put those reasons in there. You can back test them and see how they're doing. We talk about the proper back testing. 99+% of the traders I've ever seen back test severely improperly, where it isn't even anywhere near realistic to what the results they're going to get live trading. We have different phases of backtesting. We have 5 different phases. And the first one being a viability test, where you come in and you just see if the system is viable. This is all that most people do, and they don't even, a lot of times, won't even do that correctly. But, a viability test is just simply going in there, maybe starting in 2008 and trading it till 2018 based on the rules at the same time every day and seeing how it works out. That is absolutely not a reason to trade a strategy, because the results of that test are going to have nothing to do with what your live trading results are. And the problem is people expect it to, right? The next thing you got to look at is viability for you. And this can be done either with the backtesting software or just making certain considerations. Am I going to be able to trade this trade because it draws down 30%? or it has a really high delta. Is that something that's going to be a problem for me? Am I going to be able to trade this trade because, maybe it's a flat broken wing butterfly trade and I enter 5 different expiration cycles at a time and then I put other little butterflies somewhere else or calendars or something? Am I going to be able to handle these 5 trades at the same time? And what am I going to do if the market actually comes down and crashes and I have 5 different trades on 5 different expiration cycles and I have to get out of them right away? And they're very complex positions, right? You might look at that and say, I did a viability test in this trade and it looks like it works, but be realistic with yourself. I'm not going to be able to trade it because that's not something that I can deal with or something that I want to deal with. So, those types of things you have to look at. Then you have to look at, am I going to have, how am I going to mechanically actually do this? If I'm putting 10 trades on or I'm adjusting trades, you can adjust them in Backtester simply by setting them up and hitting the convert button. But this is the phase of the test. What's my execution going to be really going to be like? What how am I actually going to get this butterfly from here to there without creating a delta problem for myself? What's my schedule like? I mean, all kinds of stuff like that. And you take that stuff into consideration, and then you have to say, and then even after all that, are you going to take charting into consideration? Most people say they don't, but they do. When it's time to go into a bearish butterfly, I can't tell you the amount of people who say, I trade by the rules, I don't take anything into consideration, but I'm not entering today because the market's down too far, or the market's up too far, or whatever. You have to take those biases into account, because even a small change can make a huge change in your long-term results. And if you're not going to trade the way you backtested, there's not a whole lot of point in backtesting, because, other than a general viability structure, because you're not going to do it anyway. Right? So this is very, very important. And then, same thing with news, right? So we know what the past news events were. We can go back. We can decide of a process for preparing for news. We can create that process, and we can go back and we can back test it based on the news of the past. So there's no excuse for not doing it. It just takes a tremendously long time, but that's how you're going to get, the only way you're actually going to get realistic results back testing is if you actually back test the way you trade. That's the only way it's going to happen. Otherwise, you're just doing a futile exercise. So, so this is very important. And of course, we have the last stage, which is performance enhancement that we can do through backtesting, which is really cool. We talk about dealing with overnight gaps, large moves, and catastrophic situations. Things that people don't think about. You're in a trade and you're at maximum positive delta, and the market gap's down, whatever, whatever percent. Do you have plans in place for that? What are you going to do about it? You're obviously going to be over maximum loss. So you're going to trade intraday. You're going to stick to your plan. What are you going to do? Are you going to change your plan? We talk about the critical elements of a trade plan, and we give trade plan examples. We also talk about critical items to record in your trading and psychological journals. We look at trade debriefs, which is basically evaluating how you actually traded according, compared to your plans and what you said you were going to do. We look at the cycle of success and how to get into that cycle. Trade execution, determining what you should pay for the positions based on value rather than posted mid-price at any given time. We look at timing adjustments. We look at combining the ROC, the M3, and the bearish butterfly strategies. And we do this a little bit in M21, but we do it differently here, right? We talk about combining them and gradually transitioning back and forth. We talk about doing a ROC trade in a way where if you go from the M3 configuration to the ROC configuration, it's going to be gradual and a lot less drastic and things like that. So all good things to do. Again, with advanced position management, it's all great things to know for adjusting to different situations. Again, a lot of the trades you see now were born from this. And I think that is pretty much what I have. Let's see. Yeah, so I don't know if we have any questions. We just have a comment from David saying that the psychology section itself is worth the price of admission. I truly believe that as well. And I can't tell you the amount of traders who I've been through who have been struggling with their trading for many, many years, and not doing well, or maybe even they're doing okay, but they just don't feel good about their trading and they don't feel good about their life and so forth. And we finally get them, or they finally break down and say, you know what, nothing else is working. I'm just gonna let's try this psychology thing. Let's see how it goes. And a year later, 2 years later, 5 years later, they come back and they say, if I only knew, I would have been so much better off. I would have been so much, got this trading thing so much faster. I would have been happier, and I would be a whole lot more money if I'd only thought of this earlier. It is really critically important, and I know that a lot of people tend to resist it, but the reality is you can have all the mechanics right. I can put you into a bull trade, right? It's a bullish vertical that's entered with time, no subjectivity, no nothing, and outperform a vast majority of these really crazy complex trades that you see out there, or at least perform as well as they do, and it probably, for the most part, even a lot better than they do, because a lot of this stuff really hasn't been even back tested properly. So, but I could take a bull trade from the year 2000 to the year today, and take that time frame and drastically outperform a vast majority of those things. And all it is putting a bullish vertical on this day, taking it off this day, taking it off if you hit a certain loss number. It's not difficult. The mechanics of being profitable trading are that easy. Anything else you're doing, if you're losing money over the longer period of time, I can't tell you what any trade will do in a single month, but I can tell you what they'll do over periods of time. And if you're losing money over periods of time, and that's your only goal, is to be profitable, it's easy. And this is not a little profitable. This is more profitable than 99% of the mutual funds, and more profitable than 99% of the traders, right? It's very profitable. It's performing at a really good level. But what I can't do is I can't get people to execute the damn trade. They won't do it. They think there's something better. They think if something's more complex, it's going to make more money. If something's more complex, it's going to win more often. Not true. Not true. Now, if you are going to get complex, like do an M3, I'm not saying an M3 performs better than a bull trade. As a matter of fact, it might perform. I don't think it really does. I think it's probably fairly similar, and it's a whole lot more complex. So to trade the M3 for the purpose of trading the M3 and expecting to outperform a bull trade, it's probably not going to happen over long periods of time. It'll happen from year to year. It might happen, but the bull trade will outperform the M3 from year to year. The reason you should be trading the M3 and learning these positions is so you can go into something like the rock trade, go into something like M21, be subjective, and really crank your money up, and really crank your performance up, not to 21%, but to 100%. If you want to do that, go running through the M3 cycle is fantastic. Right, it's fantastic because you can do that. Running through advanced position management is fantastic, but the reality is, mechanically, it's very easy to make money in the market. That's my point. If you can just get yourself to psychologically do it, it is that important. So if you're not making money in the markets, you really should take a serious look at that and see how that goes. Okay. So anyway, that is our advanced position management. That's what's in there. I don't see really any questions, so we're just going to tell you that we are running a special on this, and let you know that there's so much in this program. There's a lot of psychology, and again, it is deep level psychology that is much better than it's not the control your emotions thing. I actually watched this again in preparation for the webinar because I kind of forgot what was in it. I hadn't seen it in years. And I'm sitting here with my headphones on, and I'm laughing my butt off. And my wife, Sherry, comes out and says, "What the heck are you watching?" I said, "I'm watching APM squared." And I told her, I said, "This program is wonderful," which is a little weird because I'm talking about myself, right? So I get the look from her, the look that your significant other gives you when you're like doing something questionable. But she gives me the look. But truthfully, I learned so much great information from watching this program again, and I wrote it. So, if you have the program, I urge you to watch it again, because I'd imagine you forgot at least as much as I did. And if you haven't got it, I really urge you to do so. There is just a ton of great information out here, and if you utilize it, you'll do great. So, in fact, if you listen to our Successful Options Trader of the Month interviews, if you go back and you listen to those, I think a lot of you have access to those, and some of them are YouTube, but you'll find many of them praise this program over and over again, because it's had such a huge impact on both their trading and their personal lives. And that's why I encourage you to step up and break free from your limitations with this APM2 program. And we are running the special for our Premium and Premium Plus members, so those who support us to get the special prices. And we're getting $100 a discount for Premium, $200 discount for Premium Plus, and we're doing that until midnight, October 8th. So if you're looking to break free, now is your chance. And that's all I have. So if we don't have any other questions, it doesn't look like we do. I thank you for joining us here. Right, you can always email Sherry, LockInYourSuccess, LOCKEINYourSuccess@gmail.com, and she can make sure that you get those links, and she'll get those up and going today. So thank you for letting me know that. So how do we get that? We just go to the website? Is that what they're going to be?
Actually, there's going to be two different ways. So you can go to the Lock In Your Success website, and if you go under Programs, okay, and then you go to the RUT, and then go down to APM2.
Okay.
You'll be able to go there, and there'll be links there for the Premium and the Premium Plus members. If you choose to go this route, then you'll get an email with the link to go and purchase it at the discounted price. Or if you go into the community, you can go under the discounts pages, and the links will be automatically there. So either way, we have two different ways to get there.
Okay, great.
You want to show them in the community?
I am not signed into the community, and
okay.
I'll have to, if they know where it is, just go under what, discounts, right?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Just go to the discounts page, and it'll be at the top of the page. You'll see it.
Okay, fantastic. And they're all members, because they're the ones who get discounts. So
correct.
All right.
Yep.
Very good. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us here today, and have a great week trading, everybody. Bye.